So Quinn Lapeyre is the founder of Cali Sober Recovery Program, a peer-led, trauma-informed community that embraces multiple pathways to healing, including abstinence, geez, that was a hard one to get out, medication assistance, recovery, plant medicine, and mindfulness. With 18 years of lived experience, Quinn created the inclusive model to help people replace harmful patterns with healthier, empowering ones. Alongside the program, Quinn also runs Recovery Companions, a sober coaching service that provides one-on-one support and Cali Sober clothing, a lifestyle brand that spreads awareness through creative expression. With nearly 1 million followers across social media, Quinn uses these platforms to open conversations about recovery, mental health, and personal growth, with building safe spaces where people can heal and connect. So please welcome Quinn.
I know this is going to be a real emotional speech for me. I want to thank everybody for being here, all the speakers. This is especially emotional for me because when I first started my journey in recovery, the way that I tried to recover was not accepted. I have BPD, I have PTSD, and I have ADHD, and medications were part of my story. That was something that I was not able to share openly in the rooms, in my support system. I was scared that after all the effort that I had made to get off of coke and heroin, that people would judge me because I was taking the steps with medications to get to some level of peace. So before I get into my speech, because I actually wrote a speech instead of memorizing it like all you smart people. So I just want to say, first off, thank you to Al. Al gave me a space, he gave me a platform. I did a podcast with him before I moved out here to Salt Lake. I'm not great at last names either, so she's not here today, but Rachel Piotini was her name at the time, now married, linked me up with a person who gave me an opportunity to work with a cannabis-friendly facility that we won't mention because Mom taught me, if you have nothing nice to say, keep your mouth shut. So that opportunity, though, gave me a space where I could learn all the things that I didn't want my program to be, where I wanted to have compassion with people, where I wanted to give people a space to feel free to talk about how they think that their recovery should look, and then give them a realistic component and outweigh the cost of benefits of their choices. So huge shout out to them. I also want to shout out to Amber right here, our amazing Amber. Amber K gave me a space where I could take my literature and my brand and everything that I stand for and put it in front of a recovery community that I thought would not accept me. With her friendship with Al, with you, Sarah, with Tiffany and Teresa over there, the amount of people that I've been able to communicate with and connect with in this recovery community and have given me space and given me compassion for the way that I recover has just been something that I never expected, especially in Salt Lake City, Utah, of all places. So thank you. Thank you. All right. So my speech is called Bridge the Gap. So like I mentioned, my name's Quinn. I'm the founder of Cali Sober Recovery Program. And I know when people hear Cali Sober, a lot of them think, oh, that's just smoking weed and doing mushrooms in recovery, and that's not really recovery. Our program is much more than that. In fact, our literature doesn't even mention cannabis. What it does mention is removing unhealthy behaviors, because addiction was never really about a substance. It's about the root cause, the pain, the wounds, the wiring that made us need the escape in the first place. We hear it all the time. Addiction and alcoholism are just the symptoms of a far deeper issue. For me, cannabis and mushrooms were a part of my healing, yes, but the real awakening was realizing that it wasn't the substances that needed to change. It was my relationship with them and my relationship with myself. I remember asking, why me? I looked at my higher power, or what I thought it was at that time, and I remember asking, why did you do this to me? Why did you choose this path for me? Why do I have friends who have died? I have friends who have gotten sober, but yet you choose me to stay in this addiction. For years, I didn't know the answer, but now I do. Everything I went through wasn't punishment, it was preparation. Preparation for a purpose. And that purpose is why I'm standing here before you today. To bridge the gap between every recovery path, so we stop fighting each other and start fighting for each other. A little backstory about me. I was born in France. After my parents' divorce, my mom brought me and my brother to the United States, and you'd think a new life in America would be full of opportunity. But for me, it meant loneliness. I was bullied for my name, Quentin Lapeyre. I was bullied for my accent. Between 5 and 7 years old, I was molested. My brother was in and out of juvie and gangs. My mom was always working. The men in our lives were abusive, addicted, and angry. I was the kid hiding in the closets, praying that they wouldn't find me. Eventually, my mom sent me back to France to live with a father that I barely knew. But he was deployed in the military, so I ended up with a stepmother who literally made my life hell. When I came back to the States and my mom seemed more focused on her relationship than on me, I felt invisible, forgotten, a lost soul wandering through life without direction. And eventually I found my people who didn't judge, people who were also escaping themselves. My journey with substances began after a legal prescription to painkillers. Like a lot of us, I fell into the pill mill cycle of the early 2000s. But soon it became Xanax, then Coke and ecstasy, and eventually heroin, fentanyl, and everything else. I wasn't just using, I was selling. I was on the run from the law, caught up in prostitution, home invasions, robberies, anything to feed that cycle. I lost myself completely because I abandoned who I was. Then came the medical event that changed everything. One morning, I woke up with a testicular torsion. A testicular torsion is where one testicle wraps around the other and it cuts off circulation to one of the two. They told me that they had to operate or I was going to lose it. And I said, go ahead, I don't want to lose it. But I am an intravenous drug user, so have fun finding a vein to put me under. They were able to put me under. And when they went to wake me up from the anesthesia, they hit me with adrenaline, and the adrenaline and cocaine in my system made my heart rate skyrocket, and I blew my coronary artery completely severed from my heart. I flatlined and went into cardiac arrest. I had 4 or 5 heart attacks, and they rushed me up to the ER, put a balloon pump through my femoral artery since my whole junk was already open anyway, and they put that line all the way up into my heart, and I was on full life support for 5 days. I woke up from that coma, and I had not even known what was going on. I didn't even remember waking up from the initial anesthesia. And my family was around my bedside, and I was the only one living in Utah at the time, so it was like, why is everybody here? What's going on? They told us to come say goodbye because you weren't going to make it. When I woke up from that coma and everybody was around my bedside, I didn't know what was going on. I started to freak out. I was still intubated. I still had all these tubes and stuff stuck in me. And I tried to pull out the tubes. So they put me back under. And the next morning they woke me up and I had more people around my bedside, still more confused than ever. And they said, you've been through a lot. Imagine your happy place. And in my drug-induced coma, my first words were, turtles are my happy place. So turtles are really significant to me, apparently. After that, I moved to Savannah, Georgia. I tried to get my life together. They told me I wouldn't live to see my next birthday because the amount of damage that I had done to my heart. I woke up on 11/11/11, and that number has followed me since then. It's a story of new beginnings, and you would think that that would be the wake-up moment for me, but it wasn't. Instead, I came back out to Utah. Well, I moved out to Georgia to live out my days with my mom and my brother and my sister. And instead, after about a month, I was like, this is not how I'm not going to go out sober, white knuckling freaking the rest of my life. So I'm going to go back to Utah and I'm going to party and have fun and hopefully die on somebody's couch, nodded out or some shit. Like freaking Weekend at Bernie's or something, I don't know. But that wasn't it. That wasn't enough for me. For some of us, rock bottom is death, and not everyone comes back. I'm one of the fortunate ones who did. And I share all this not for sympathy, but because so many of us have so many roots in pain, and we don't wake up one day and decide to destroy ourselves. It's a slow evolution, born from needing relief, from needing to feel safe, even for a moment. And that's the power of understanding addiction. It's not weakness, it's a response to pain. What I love so much about what everybody shared today is I feel like what Cali Sober represents is everything that everybody has talked about. The inability to accept powerlessness as a title, or the acceptance that we want to give to people no matter their recovery path. The healing rooted in neuroscience and neural pathways and how to rewire the brain. The idea that we're not broken, that we simply have to step into what we believe. So my first real attempt at getting clean came when I moved to Savannah, Georgia. I went into sober living, started attending Alcoholics Anonymous 5 days a week, and I want to say this very clearly. AA gave me the foundation of my recovery. I memorized the big book. I worked the steps. I found community and purpose. The principles I learned there, honesty, humility, willingness, service, they are the same principles that live inside Cali Sober Recovery Program today. For almost a year, I was abstinent, sponsoring people. I meditated, I did service work, I prayed, but deep inside, I still wanted to get high. Abstinence didn't fix my PTSD, it didn't calm my ADHD, and it didn't regulate my BPD. Eventually, I was evaluated by a doctor and prescribed medication, but I refused to take it because in the rooms, I'd heard it over and over, if you're on meds, you're not truly sober. So I white-knuckled my pain and called it spiritual discipline and told myself I was strong, but I wasn't. I was suffering, and before long, I relapsed. How many of you have ever felt like you were doing everything right but still felt broken inside? That's where I was. I had the tools, the teachings, but not the understanding. After another year on the streets, I moved in with my sister, and she had this completely different approach of healing: meditation, sound baths, breath work, energy work. Honestly, I thought she was nuts because this was the first time that I had ever heard about sound healing or the power of vibration or the law of frequency. But she didn't tell me to stop using. She asked me why I was using, and that was the first time in my life that somebody had asked me that. It shifted everything. Recovery stopped being about substances and it started being about behaviors, about the why behind the what. I got on Suboxone and I began using cannabis, not to escape, but to survive, to quiet the panic attacks, to ground myself, to regulate my BPD. Cannabis gave me a space to live, and it gave me harm reduction. It gave me a bridge, and for the first time in 18 years, I realized I could actually feel joy without destroying myself. I could laugh, I could love, and I could breathe, and not be chained to heroin, coke, or fentanyl. That discovery gave me something stronger than abstinence ever could: hope. That what people don't always understand, or that's what people don't always understand. It wasn't about getting high, it was about finding something gentle enough to slow down the storm. I didn't want to escape my life, I wanted to finally live it. Cali Sober Recovery was born from that moment. From realizing that harm reduction isn't failure, it's survival. That recovery can look different and still be valid. It's not about what you use, it's about what the intention is. Thank you. My deepest shift came during a psilocybin ceremony. For the first time, I faced my trauma head to head without a mask. This ceremony that I had done psilocybin hundreds of times in my teenage years, and so it wasn't the psilocybin that healed me or cured me or allowed me to, achieve some kind of miracle pill. What it did do was it put me in a mind state where I was able to meet my inner child. And when I started my psilocybin ceremony, I was building this huge rock sculpture in my backyard, and it was next to the woods, so there's all these woods and trees and everything. I felt like I was out in nature, and I laid on the grass. Before going into this ceremony, I asked myself, what is it that all these people are getting healing from that I didn't get the hundreds of times I was doing psychedelics in my teens? And it was the intention. When I was in my teens, I was intending to escape. I was intending to feel something outside of myself. With this newfound intention of healing and finding, why am I like this? Why am I stuck? Why can't I get away from my addictions? That was what changed. When I went into that ceremony, I now found myself going into this hallucination where I'm walking down this path through the forest, and I feel somebody holding my hand. And I look down and I see myself, my younger self, at 7 years old, the one that was still being molested. And we start walking this path, and we get to a lake, and it starts to be sunset, and we sit down on this lake, and a movie screen, much like this one, shows up above this lake. And it starts to show me in the womb, and then me being born, and then me flying to the United States and being abused and molested, and me going through abandonment and bullying, and my family and everybody else kind of just drifting away from me, and any kind of support drifting away from me, any kind of connection drifting away. During this movie, we saw these happy times too. We saw, times where I wished would never end because I was so happy, moments where I forgot the trauma and the pain that I went through. At the end of that movie, it said, Finn, because I'm French, instead of the end. And I looked down at my younger self and I said, what do we do now? And he said, you have a choice to make. I said, okay, what's the choice? He said, you have to choose whether to live or die. And looking back at that movie, I was thinking of all the suicide attempts, all of the ODs, all of the times that I wished that I had not woken up. And then I remembered the times of happiness. And I remember those times not wanting those moments to end. So I looked down at my inner child and I said, it's not that I want to die. It's that I want to be happy and I don't know how to do that anymore. And he looked at me and he said, I can give you all the happiness that you've been looking for if you can make a commitment to me. And I said, what's the commitment? He said, as long as you are no longer using drugs or alcohol or any unhealthy behaviors to escape or numb from your reality, I will give you all the happiness that you want. And I looked at him and I said, that doesn't make sense because I'm on 9 grams of mushrooms in a different dimension talking to myself. So he said, did you come here to heal or did you come here to escape? And I said, I came here to heal. And he said, as long as your intention is rooted in recovery and not escapism, then our commitment still stands. So I said, okay. So this is where I was able to face that trauma head to head, without the mask, without an escape. I met that younger self, the little boy who was molested, bullied, abandoned, and I didn't run from him this time. I forgave him, I forgave my abusers, and I asked for forgiveness. I walked away no longer hating who I was. And when you stop hating yourself, you stop needing to escape yourself. Thank you. Did plant medicine cure me? No. But it gave me a space to finally confront my pain instead of running from it. This was my spiritual awakening, and it's why I believe in bridging recovery, because different keys unlock different doors, and some doors won't open through force. They open through compassion. When we talk about healing, it's easy to talk about science or programs, but what truly heals people is connection to self, to others, and to purpose. This is where bridging the gap truly begins. I've sat in meetings where someone said, if you're on Suboxone, you're not truly sober. And I remember looking across the room at a woman 9 months sober, working 2 jobs, raising her kids, and her face just fell. That moment broke something in me, because how dare we take someone's hope away just because their recovery path doesn't look like ours? AA gave me my foundation. I'll say it again, without AA, I wouldn't be here. The 12 steps gave me structure, humility, and connection to something greater than myself. But here's the truth. Addiction has evolved, and recovery has too. We can't keep dividing ourselves over methods when the goal is the same: healing, growth, and freedom. Bridging the gap means creating spaces where everyone belongs, where someone can say, I'm on Suboxone, and another can say, I'm abstinent, and both are celebrated for showing up. It means honoring every pathway that leads people home to themselves. Cali Sober Recovery wasn't built to replace abstinence. It was built to stand alongside it, to create a space where people can talk openly about medication, therapy, trauma, spirituality, cannabis, or abstinence, without shame. Because recovery isn't defined by a clean urine test. It's defined by how we live, how we treat others, how we reconnect to our values. Your path doesn't threaten mine, and my path doesn't threaten yours. We're not each other's competition. We're each other's safety net. Thank you all so much. This will be my last paragraph, so stick with it. So if there's one thing I want you to remember from today, it's this. The biggest gap isn't between being clean and sober. It isn't between Matt and abstinence. It's between us, the people who carry these principles. When we let judgment divide us, we lose people who could have been saved. But when we reach across that divide, when we bridge that gap, we give people hope. I finally realized the true meaning of progress, not perfection. We are all trying to make it home to ourselves. For some, that road is abstinence. For others, it's harm reduction. For others still, it's faith, therapy, or plant medicines. None of us should have to walk it alone. So let's bridge that gap between our differences, between our fears, between each other, so no one ever has to wonder if recovery is possible, because it is. Every single day it is. We do recover.